very, very, very excited to introduce tonight's special guest, Mr. Peter Sagal.
Hello.
I feel like these flowers are coming between us.
They are. Well, it's only appropriate. Some of you may be wondering why Amanda dedicated the bed song to me. It's because Amanda and I were married for 40 years.
Little known fact.
It's true.
Can we actually...
It's amazing how she fits that in with everything else she does.
Can I do something a little weird?
She may do anything. You can, yes.
This feels stupid.
So what do you want to do?
So I want to make this go away.
Oh, you want the whole table?
Like in the background.
Oh! Ah!
Just like...
That's what... Whoa! There we go.
Weapon.
Yeah.
I came up...
Yeah. It's like...
Shut the fucking door! Ah!
The day the bride lost it. Unit 406, we have a woman attacking people with flowers in Harvard Square. Throwing them as hard as she can.
It's actually not off topic. I was hanging out. We did New York last night, and I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and we were talking about our, like...
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Is it clipping?
How's that? Better?
Yeah, you're good.
What if
Am I good?
What if I'm talking to you guys, though? You can still hear it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to talk to you. Sorry! Really?
It's like going in and out.
That's not my fault. Microphone? Really? Okay, well...
Usually a
Battery
battery issue.
issue? The battery is full. You know, it's gonna be a long night.
Oh, yeah.
I'll leave this here as backup, and I will use this.
Oh, the stories you could tell.
What I was gonna say, I'm more comfortable holding a microphone anyway, because then I have something to do with my hands, and I can do this, and I can talk to you. I was in New York last night. We did a signing last night, really long, late signing last night at Barnes & Noble in Union Square, and then we went out for drinks with some really good friends. And we came up with a term that, possibly because it was 1 a.m. and we were all drunk, seemed hilarious to us. We termed the coin weapons of mass affection, which actually seems pretty appropriate when you're pelting people with flowers that might blind them.
Where do you want to start? We have some questions. There were a lot of questions that one person, and I just picked the ones that immediately struck me. One person for some really excellent handwriting.
Wow.
Yeah. Most of the questions all had the same subtext, which was, I love you. Many of them had some question about one of your songs, then, I love you. So that was very nice, but this was the one I wanted to start off with. Very simple, 3 words. How are you?
I'm actually pretty good. Someone asked me the other night, I think it was in DC, someone asked me, what's the best question you've ever been asked? And it's that question. Like, if you ever want to ask me the best question, that's the best question to ask someone who's in the position to answer, because it's like it's the most humanizing question you can possibly ask.
There's a moment in the book where you ask Neil, your husband, that question.
Yeah.
And he says, no one ever asked me that.
Yeah, and I didn't believe him. And I still kind of don't believe him. I think I think he was asked how he was a lot of times, but he didn't feel like he could give people an honest answer.
Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this before. A lot of it has to do with context. Like, I can't actually tell you how I am. I can't actually tell you the exact things that are bothering me right now because they're too personal, and and it would be too complicating to talk about them on this stage. But I can tell you that I'm happier now than I was a month ago or 6 months ago. Actually, I had a really shitty year, and some of it was circumstantial and sick friends and crazy circumstantial things that I had no control over. And some of it was this book, which I'm so fucking glad it's done, but writing it was not fun. And it was really lonely. It was like the longest, most arduous, loneliest, non-communicative thing I've ever done, even though I knew I would get to this place where everyone is like, we love you, and and I could actually share the stuff in the book, but just being so hunkered down and just writing words and having no feedback and being so unrelated for so long, especially after years and years of touring, and this is like crack. It's like constant feedback and constant communication, and it's really wonderful. And I really like this part. And the other part really feels like work. But I knew that I would get to this part, and it felt like writing the world's longest song. I was like, it was just it was months and months and months of doing one thing and having no answer. And it was hard.
Do you ever feel, because you are known and celebrated and loved for being so present with your fans, do you ever feel that you have to represent for them? Because in the end, you're Amanda fucking Palmer. And Amanda fucking Palmer is certain things. She is strong. She is punk. She is brave. She is fearless. And so are there times when you're like, I can't be how I'm feeling because that's not Amanda fucking Palmer?
Yeah, but also she is weak. I have been so honest with people in this room. The people who follow my Twitter, the people who read my blog, the people who are going to read this book. I am so often not at my best, and am weak, am tired, am wrong, am vulnerable, and sometimes it feels like the actual work isn't just the ability to go out and be like, hey everyone, I'm going to entertain you, and I am a brave feminist, and I'm a writer, and whatever. It actually feels like the harder work is the ability to be and I'm also fucked up, and I'm tired, and I don't know what I'm doing. And guess what? I bet that sounds familiar. And I didn't really, there were so many things I wanted to write about in this book, and this was one of them, and I sort of touched on it, but it feels like an entirely different conversation of how we view celebrities and how totally fucked up it is, and I see it just every day opening a paper or opening the internet. It still seems like culture wants to graft onto people who aren't ordinary people, who are celebrities, who are the Kardashians or the whoever's of the day, that they're somehow different and not totally flawed, and how totally ridiculous that is. And everyone seems to know that, and yet there's this paradox where everyone seems to know that, but at the same time, we were talking about this earlier, This is probably a good time to bring it up. You talk about these people and somehow view these people as if they're not real, as if they aren't reading your internet comments,
right? As
if they aren't aware of the press, as if they aren't walking into a supermarket and seeing People magazine with this person is completely fucked up on the cover of a magazine facing all these other human beings, and it's insane.
Well, what we were talking about before was something that Amanda, I think, has experienced far more than me, but I have too, is that sometimes you get these angry letters or emails or tweets or whatever they are. And what I used to find is that sometimes if somebody wrote into my show, I'll speak for myself, oh, you're so awful, I can't believe you did that, it was tasteless and stupid, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. if I wrote back and said, oh, I got your letter, I'm sorry you were offended, and I didn't really say anything else, a lot of times they would back off immediately because they were like, oh my God, you're a person. Oh, a human being saw that. I'm so embarrassed. And I think that's admirable because I think it's easy to express anger, frustration, rage at abstract things, at symbols, but to actually have someone, I mean, I remember once I went to a baseball, I love baseball, I go to baseball games, I shout at the players. I'm going to make every single one of you individually clap. Here we go. All right, I got
one.
All right, ready? Bocce. All right, never mind. Anyway, and so you shouted, oh, it was great. And then once I got seats right, and I'm a Red Sox fan, right above the dugout at Fenway Park. Somebody gave me a seat. It's like, I'm right there. It's like dugout top. Oh, wow. They can hear you. They know what you're saying. They know you said it. So instead of going for like, you suck, oh my God, you're like, oh, well, better luck next time, Mr. That was a good effort. Mr. Euclid, I'll just sit here now. Anyway.
Baseball internet metaphor,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes. But it's true, if someone, I mean, this is, that there's something about, but I want to get back to this only because it's something I think about. I think it's something that Neil probably was talking about, because, you know, he's Neil fucking Gaiman. He can't be weak or strange or sad or not in the mood, you know? I feel...
He doesn't do that as much as I do. He doesn't, like, I have made a whole art out of humanizing myself, and Neil barely does that. And it's also a choice, and also he's British.
Right.
What are you gonna do? But he also, I mean, Neil and I have talked a lot about that, and it's one of the things that he says attracted him to me was the fact that I seemed so comfortable sharing my cracks. He was so mystified by it.
I was talking to a guy who I won't name, but he's a very good guy and a very popular, he's an internet celebrity, let's say. And he's out there, and he started doing sort of tours presenting his work at conventions. And he was really freaked out. This was new to him, and it made him very uncomfortable how much people wanted from him. Oh, you know, your work that you did meant so much to me. Here, I bought my own copy. Would you sign it? Would you talk to me about this? Because I had an experience just like this one. And he really, I mean, you could tell him going like, you could see him as he talked about it, rubbing up his microphone and going like this. It's hard. It's hard to be an artist. It's hard to be your own person and all of a sudden deal with other people's expectations.
Well, and that, like this thing you just talked about and the thing that like meta moment, but I'm about to do for, 2 hours with all of you guys, whoever stays to get their book signed, that's a different job than writing a book or, or creating art or even, or doing radio or writing songs. Like there's that job. There's the job of creating that stuff. There's the job of getting up here and performing it. And then the job of interacting with other human beings and, and taking on their stories and their appreciation or their pain or their joy. It's like a completely separate job. And some artists are great at it. Some artists can't stand it.
No, it's true. But I guess I keep circling around this. When somebody meets me, and they know what I do, I feel a real obligation to represent to that person, to be there, present, because for some reason it drives me crazy to think of some person who says, "Oh, I used to love this radio show. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
And then I met him.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever declined meeting a celebrity or a hero because you didn't want them to fuck with your relationship with their art?
That's a good question. I remember, gosh, I'm trying to think, because I have this vague memory of seeing somebody in a hallway and thinking I could go up to them. But I think that was just fear, because have you ever had this experience of going up to them? Well, maybe this is what you're talking about. A couple times, like I love Richard Price, the novelist and screenwriter. And I was
for people who don't know, what has he done?
Richard Price is a great screenwriter. He wrote I can't think of his movies. He's done a lot of big Hollywood movies. But he writes these amazing novels about New York, including Clockers, Samaritan, Freedomland, about this fictional inner city Jersey. They're just amazing novels about American life as it is lived and stuff people should know about, and they don't. And they're really important books to me. And I ran into him at a literary convention where I was there as an author. And I went up to him and I said, hi, I'm Peter Sagal from NPR. He had no idea who I was. Okay, it's fine. I said, I just want to say, I've read your books. I think they're amazing. I think they're like a modern chronicle of our times. They mean so much to me. And all I got from him was an incredible desire to get by me to the buffet.
That's the worst.
Yeah, because he's looking at the buffet and looking at me going, oh, yeah. And looking at the buffet, and I'm like, thank you so much. And he went on his way. And now that's all I can think of. I look at the books on my shelf, and I'm like, he really was hungry.
Oh.
And that's, it's
Artists
not his fault.
People.
It's not his fault. He was hungry. He was at a party where he didn't think he'd have to deal with annoying fans. Oh. I know. So that's what I want to avoid.
I once declined meeting Morrissey.
Really?
Right? I was enough into my career that I wasn't just like awestruck and starstruck by getting to meet, like one by one, meet my mentors, which mostly I have. And I was at a festival with the Dresden Dolls in Germany, and I sat down in catering next to Morrissey's keyboard player, and was talking and found out that he was Morrissey's keyboard player and said I was a fan, and he was like, oh, well, he's right. He's in the dressing room. I could come introduce you. And I was like, maybe better not. Because I've heard he can be kind of a dick. And
Who would suspect that?
And
you seem so cheerful.
No, but see, here the percentages are like there's like a 93% chance that Morrissey would have, like most people, be really friendly.
Yeah.
And gracious.
Right.
And like especially backstage, I'm in the inner circle. I'm not just some random fan who's bum rushing his dressing room. He probably would have been really nice. But I didn't want to risk that sliver of a percentage that he was going to just head for the buffet. I was like, I can't listen to How Soon Is Now and think about the buffet. It will ruin my life.
People ask me who are my favorite guests on my radio show. And I have a rehearsed answer, but it's a very honest one. My favorite guests are those people who I grew up admiring, who got to be in my radio show, and I got to meet them, and they were great. Dick Van Dyke. Yes. Leonard Nimoy. Carrie Fisher, who I admired for a different reason. And it is...
You're fired.
I know, come on.
By the way, I just heard Florence Henderson.
Oh, she was awesome.
She was so sassy.
She was sassy.
She was
and she
awesome.
actually, we were told she had
This is Mrs. Brady from the Brady Bunch.
Oh, it was very racy. It was crazy. Anyway, but it's so gratifying that you grew up loving Dick Van Dyke, you meet Dick Van Dyke, he's just as nice as you hope, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't waste my childhood. This is great. And I've had very few experiences, none that I can think of, where I've met somebody and they're like, oh, you're awful. Oh, God.
I've had pretty much almost none of those, and it actually is really wonderful when you meet another artist, and they're gracious and they're kind and they're just as amazing as you imagined they would be, because then you listen to their music and you get the warm fuzzies.
You do. Have you ever... What? Or you marry them.
Except in my case, and people ask me this all the time, and it sort of varies between being a point of embarrassment and a point of pride, but I had never read any Neil Gaiman before I married him. Which I think was important, because I think if I had been a Neil Gaiman fan, our relationship would have probably been cursed from the beginning, because he would have been fucking a fan.
Yeah.
So...
Plus, you didn't want to know. That shit is fucked up. You don't want to be. Seriously.
I've been slowly working my way through his catalog since meeting him.
There's like dead people walking around. You don't want to get involved.
I've been reading his work with a really interesting perspective that nobody else reads it with, which is like his life partner And, you know, the way I process art, and I read all of his stuff just trying to figure out who this guy is. Because he's so bizarre and mysterious, and I'm like constantly trying to analyze him, and his shit is weird. He's a weird dude. Anyway.
Just remember, whenever you get a little intimidated by his weirdness, his first book was about being a Duran Duran fan.
No, except that he wasn't a Duran Duran fan.
Oh, he was a hired gun.
It was like he was paid £500 against his will to write a biography of Duran Duran fan. Oh, a Duran Duran book, and his choices were he's approached. I'm glad we're talking about my book.
Yeah.
He was approached by this publisher. He was like this struggling journalist with no money. He was approached by the publisher. He loves telling the story. And they were like, and they were British, would you like to write a rock biography? And Neil was like, yes, I'd love to write a rock biography. I'd love to write one about David Bowie or about, about Reckless Eric. And they were like, well, no. We already have 3 slated for publication. You can either do Def Leppard, Barry Manilow, or Duran Duran. And Neil didn't like any of those bands. So he picked Duran Duran I'm a big Duran Duran fan. This is like a point of contention in our marriage.
Let's talk about your book. I want to talk about your book.
It's already 10 o'clock.
Because this book is, oh my God,
I know, we're supposed to stop at 10, but that's not going to happen.
This book is, all right, I'm going to reduce myself to 2 questions. This book is a very uplifting book, and it's a happy book because it's about the rewards of making yourself vulnerable, of being brave, of putting yourself out there. So the first question is, has it ever gone bad? Have you ever put yourself out there? And I mean, like you tell one story, it's one story of many. We're in New York, it's late, you don't want to cross back to Brooklyn, and you put out a tweet, hey, can anybody put me up in the East Village? Yes, come over, you come over, you're worried, are they going to be crazy? No, they're wonderful, they're great. Did it ever end up the other way? Like you had to back out or ask for rescue or deeply involved in something you did not want to be involved in?
Well, there's a passage in the book where I talk about, a lot of you guys probably saw my TED Talk, and some of you may, thank you, and some of you may have even been at the shows where I magic markered upon naked. And I didn't do one of those in Chicago, but I did one in Boston and in New York. And there's a passage in the book where I did this stunt in Berlin, and this night in Berlin was like the perfect night, perfect show, pop-up, incredible art gallery of amazing people. It was just magic. There was, beer everywhere, crazy Germans everywhere, impromptu marching band, paintings up on the wall, everyone just in this magical love mood. Amazing string quartet, crazy, drag cabaret performers coming from out of the woodwork and playing spontaneous songs. It was like Amanda Palmer Disney World. And I did my, stripping naked, everybody draw on me stunt at the end of the night, which I only did 4 or 5 times on that tour because I didn't want it to turn into like a gimmick. And I did something that I think I only did that night. I might have done it one other night, but I let people take pictures with me. And really interestingly, none of these pictures, or almost none of them, have surfaced on the internet, which is kind of says a lot for my fans, and also probably says a lot for the amount of naked pictures I already have on the internet. There's no cachet there. But this
it's like an old joke. Do you have any naked pictures of your wife? Would you like some?
This fan who had been kind of weirdly stalking me and bugging me a little bit, and who my red flag was kind of up. I posed for a picture with her, and she took her hand and stuck it right up my vagina. Right. And yes, and it was one of those moments where I was like, this is happening to me right now, and I'm having my picture taken, and I'm Amanda Palmer, and there are all these people around, and I am like the queen of asking, and and things just got a little bit rapey. And being me, because I'm me, I didn't freak out. because I don't freak out. And I also, like, I didn't freak out inside. I was like, oh, this person is annoying. And, you know, I, like, grabbed her hand and sort of swatted her away and made them go away. But it was also one of those moments where, like, wasn't until the end of the night where I was like, God, like, it's moments like that that make me realize there's always a flip side. And you know, I write about this conversation I had with Neil that night where I was like, am I such a fucked up person that I'm almost grateful to this girl for reminding me how much I trust everybody? And Neil was like, you're a little fucked up, but you're wonderful and I love you. But it is that thing where, like, you put yourself in risky situations, and they're risky situations for a reason. Because the risk is real, and if the risk isn't real, it isn't brave, and it isn't a risk. And it was a moment like that with this girl that, you know, and I'm always looking on the bright side. I was like, I trust everybody so much. I trust my fans so much. Everyone is so kind to me. And I just trust them unquestioningly. And here's, like, the fucking exception proves the rule. And here's this moment, and I just have to take it as part and parcel of what I do and how I interact with my fans. I'm not going to punish the girl. But it was a really huge lesson. So yes, things go wrong and things fuck up, but it also puts everything in relief.
I'm gonna take a point of personal privilege. There are a lot of good questions here, and we've been talking too much. And why are you so awesome? Here's a question. Hello. I just love the handwriting. Hello, Amanda. I'm really, really, really super fucking excited, so I can't think of anything but 3 U's. I want to know what prompted you to shave off your eyebrows. Also, what makes you happy. Okay, that's all. I really love you. I told you. And I wanted to ask the eyebrow question because I love the answer.
The eyebrow story is actually, it's pretty simple. If you want the long story, and the long story isn't even very long. When I was 21, I'd come back from Germany, I'd gone back to college, I was severely unhappy, and I was having, like, a classic college age, 21 identity crisis freak out. Does anyone have one of those? Like, full-on identity crisis, who am I? I have no control over my existence. And like many women, but also a few men that I've talked to feel like I had some control over my existence, I shaved my entire body, including my head, because I just didn't know what to do. And I was like, here's something I can do. I'll just shave all the hair off my body. And I looked terrible. I don't know if you've ever seen a person with well, there's the wall. Imagine Bob Geldof in the wall with my face. It looked bad. And and I sort of felt empowered for about 8 hours, and then forget it. It was a disaster. So I started wearing hats, and I didn't want to just chick style draw my eyebrows in. So I started doodling them in, and I noticed that actually it drew people towards me, which was not what I was expecting. I let them grow in, and 5 years later, the Dresden Dolls went to a Marlene Dietrich lookalike contest, and I shaved them again so I could do Marlene eyebrows, which are like 3 inches above your normal eyebrows. And I doodled them in again, and it was the amount, and I only see this in retrospect, it was the amount of engagement I got from the universe with my strange eyebrows of, like, I would walk into a store, or I would walk down the street, or I would buy a subway token, and people would be like, hey, I like your eyebrows. And I was like, oh my God, humanity is talking to me. I'm keeping this. And I equate it, it's like having a funny mustache. People sort of assume that you're open to chatting.
Yeah.
That's someone clapping with a funny mustache right there. I can tell.
No, it's like an internet thing. Like, this one trick will get people to look you in the eye. I love it. This is my question. So much, and this is, I think, has to be it. So much of this book is about creating a transaction with your audience, with people. I will ask you for this, but there's always a sense of I will give something back, the flower from the bride. And when you're talking about your interactions with your fans and the couch surfing and the crowd sourcing, it's all about, you're going to give me this, but I'm going to give it back to you. Okay, great. And it's wonderful, and it's worked, and it's brought us all here. What do you do, how do you feel about when you just need something? How do you get over, and this is something personal for me for a bunch of reasons I won't get into, how do you get over the fear of being needy, the fear of throwing yourself on the mercy of others, the fear of being, you'd say that girl, I'd say that guy, who's, kind of whiny?
Well, I think there's a difference between being whiny and needing something. I think a lot of it is how you put yourself forward. And I see this, and I worry about this so much because I see so much of this on the internet and in the tone that seems to be overtaking everything lately, especially with feminism. There's a real difference between saying, I really need this, which is hard to answer, and I really need this, and here's why. And when the tone is aggressive, it's much harder for people to answer you with kindness. And when the tone is, I don't even want to say vulnerable, but the tone is authentic, and you're able to look someone in the eye and say, I need to ask you. And really important, and you're allowed to say no. But I'm asking you, can you do this thing for me? Can you put this a different way? Can you loan me the money? Can whatever it is, like there's and the list, goes on and on and on. There's such a difference. And I say this in the book, if you are asking someone for something and your tone of voice, and I say tone of voice, euphemistically, your tone of voice can be your writing voice or however it is that you're asking is coming across. If your tone of voice isn't allowing for someone to say, right now I can't help you, even though I know you need it, and your tone of voice isn't allowing for someone to say no, you're not really asking, you're demanding, or you're begging.
You have a really good line in the book that I can't conjure about the difference between asking and begging. Do you remember it? Because I can't find it. Is it a line from a friend? It's in a discussion with a friend. It's toward the beginning.
Oh, well, no, there was a spot in the blog where I asked a bunch of people, like, what's the difference between asking and begging? And there's actually a great list of answers.
I've got it.
What is
you have it open?
Yeah.
What is
read
it?
it. Read it.
Asking is an act of intimacy and trust. Begging is a function of fear, desperation, or weakness.
Yeah. Good one.
That'll do. I think we're running late, and I think that we should stop and let Amanda play some more songs, right? Amanda Palmer.
Peter Sagal.